Welcome to Sure Thing. We're Lakey Peterson
and Kaylee Gilchrist, two athletes who love exploring the world and sharing our stories.
We'll be taking you through the good times, the tough times, and everything in between.
Basically, it's about chasing dreams, staying inspired, and having fun along the way.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sure Thing podcast. As you can see here, we have a very exciting guest, Cammie Craig. So I am lucky enough to intro Cammie. And before I give you her whole resume as being one of the best water polo players in the world, I will just say she's one of my nearest and dearest friends. She married Tom and I. She was our officiant, and she and I are just thicker than thieves, sometimes getting ourselves in trouble, but love her with all my heart. So for those that don't know Cammie Craig, she grew up in the San Ynez Valley, just inland of Santa Barbara. She was born July 21st, 1987. Not to age you. Yeah. And she learned to swim and play water polo at a young age and just rose to the top. She actually went and transferred to Santa Barbara to get some more recognition. Was the first to ever graduate from college at USC in her family, which was huge. And there she won back-to-back Pete Catinos, which, if you guys don't know, that's like the Heisman Trophy of water polo. Like, it is the biggest award you can win. So not only did she win it once, she won back-to-back, and no one's ever done so since. Won a national championship in 2010. You know, she was back and forth from water polo on college to the national. She competed in 2008 Beijing silver, 2012 London gold, 2016 Rio gold that I was lucky enough to be a part of. And she is just an absolute warrior, now dominating the corporate coaching and culture side of things, which we will hear all about. So Cammie, we are so excited to have you on the pod. And wow, there's even more on her resume, but you guys get the picture. She's a badass.
Thank you, Kaylee.
Cammie Craig!
It's so fun to hear you wrap all of that up. It's like we've been in so many spaces together where our bios are being shared, and it's cool to be in your guys' space today. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm stoked to be here and talk to my friends.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, we're going to kick it off with our first segment. It's called Cue the Chaos. 5 quick questions for you. Answer accordingly. So, the very first question, the most important one. Cammie Craig, what's your coffee order?
Oh my gosh, we got a Breville on our registry. We put it on, and I've just been making cappuccinos at home, just pumping them out. And
Hell yeah.
I feel like now that I have had a window into this world, I'm kind of a coffee snob. But vanilla chai,
welcome.
I know vanilla chais they're like my warm and cozies, but at home I'm pumping out cappuccinos every day, or lattes, you know.
Yeah,
So.
speaking my language. All right, what song gets you amped before a big moment?
Oh man, I don't know, anything like old school hip hop, like
All right.
anything that's nostalgic and I can kind of bump or dance to.
I was just going to say, you guys, Cammie is quite the dancer. Maybe we'll drop a video right here of her dancing.
Oh, yes.
It is amazing.
Please don't.
I saw her dance at your wedding. Cammie was on fire at your wedding. It was on. Yes, you and your man, Cammie, you guys were going off. It was great. Okay. One training hack that you swear by.
Preparation. Even before training, like have your bag set up, have your meals planned, just as much as you can be prepared so that you can arrive to training and drop in, the better you are. Preparation's not just for the competition or the game. It's in everything that you do. So preparation.
Love that. What is your go-to guilty pleasure?
Oh my gosh, you guys, I've watched every episode and every season of the Kardashians, and my husband's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. And I can't stop now. I'm just committed. And I'm like, studying sociology, I'm just like the study of human behavior. I'm just fascinated. I cannot turn away.
I love them. I watch it too.
Who doesn't? Shout out the Kardashians. All right. What is one habit, mindset, or quote that's changed your life the most?
I think a mindset is as simple as it seems as I'm reflecting, I mean, maybe it wasn't in the forefront, but like simply you don't know unless you try. You don't know unless you ask. You don't know unless you put yourself out there. And being the only athlete in my family, um, struggling with learning differences, navigating a sport that wasn't in our world or realm whatsoever is just kind of this courage to put yourself out there and see what happens. And the worst that can happen is that you don't move forward in it and you weren't prior. So you might as well just go out there and see what's possible.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. Well done. You survived Cue the Chaos, the first segment. Loved the answers. And then we're just gonna dive on in here. I want to know, obviously, Cammie, you grew up in San Ynez Valley, which is a pretty small, quaint little area in California. Beautiful back there, close to Santa Barbara, where I grew up, actually.
Mhm.
You want to just tell us about your upbringing, how the environment was growing up back there, how that kind of got you into water polo, and then two, I want to talk to you after you talk about that a little bit about being diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia because I have really bad dyslexia too. But yeah, I guess just start with how you grew up, how you got into water polo, and as a young kid.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a country girl through and through. My father grew up on a 150-acre walnut farm. I grew up doing harvest with my family. And growing up dirt biking on the ranch and driving old beat up pickup trucks and just, we just had a lot of freedom and it was very much like country living. And I laugh because you come, to San Ynez, and when I was growing up, it was a lot of hay and horses. It's like Western town, and now there's more vineyards here, so I call it the Western Napa or the Western Sonoma is like to paint a picture of San Ynez. And I just had my teammate Kylie Newsholes over, and her husband came with her, and he is a Spanish native. He played on the men's Spanish national team and then went on to coaching some predominant water polo teams in Europe.
Mhm.
And as they came over for dinner that day, he arrives to the house and he goes, Cammie, where are the pools here? Like, where did you come from? Like, how was that possible? And it was so cool for the first time to like have that perspective and acknowledgement of like, I came from this little country town that really it had one public pool and we
Yeah.
found it. So, I mean, truly how I got into water polo was through swimming and through trying other sports. I was basically hell on wheels growing up. Like I had so much energy. My mom was like, I don't even know what to do with you. And so we would go walk up the street and swim in our neighbor's pool between 2 and 3 years old. And by the time I got into being 3, almost close to 4, my mom dropped me into the swim team with the local YMCA.
Mm.
And I was competing with them, diving off the blocks and winning my ribbons and just
Yeah.
learning and finding the joy in swimming. And I really, really was attached to the water. Went on playing, softball, basketball, volleyball, but always maintained that swimming connection. And it wasn't until the end of my seventh grade year, beginning of eighth grade, that I was introduced to water polo. And I remember going to my first club water polo practice, came onto the pool deck, and my parents said, we really would like to get our daughter into water polo. And the way that the competition worked, it was Junior Olympics was like maybe in a month and a half. And I had
Mm.
never played water polo. So he said, why don't you start her in the beginning of fall? Have
Mhm.
her, or like in the following summer, have her do her high school season. And my mom goes, well, that's the thing. She's only 12. And he goes, "You're 12 years old." I was like close to 6 foot at the time, 5'11". And he goes, she's 12. And my mom goes, yes. And he goes, okay, why don't you get her in the pool right now? So I
Mm.
had played water polo for a month and a half prior to my first like junior Olympics competition. And then the rest is history. Like I
Yeah.
just fell in love with the game. It was easy, no brainer to choose water polo going into high school.
Mm.
And like I never turned back.
You definitely have like that raw natural talent, your build, everything. I mean, you're a natural born great water polo player. So that's cool. It was not pushed upon you. It was kind of an organic fit and you loved it, it sounds like, which is rad.
Absolutely, and I mean, when I say there's no athletes in my family, like, I mean, there is 0, like, my 2 older brothers did not play any organized sports, my mom doesn't know how to swim,
How tall
my
is your
dad
mom?
my mom's 5'4" and wears size 7
Whoa.
in women's shoe,
Yes.
and
What happened to
I was
you?
wearing her shoes in 2nd grade, you guys. I
That's
had, like,
amazing.
the Reebok with the straps, I was rocking those in
Yes.
2nd grade, like, mortified, you know?
Those are the best. And
Big kid, dramas.
and then so tell us a little bit about and we'll get more into water polo in a second, but when you got diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, because I have really
Yeah,
bad dyslexia, and that was something that was really hard for me as a kid. In public school, I ended up
yeah.
homeschooling, which was a lot better route for me, learning wise. Thank God, I had good parents in that way. But how did that affect you? When did you kind of realize that growing up? You know, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so early on, my mom quickly recognized and flagged that I was struggling in school, and so I was tested and diagnosed, with dyslexia and ADD, I believe, in the start like, end of 1st grade, start of 2nd, so we caught it really early, which is fantastic. I think, some people are worried about being labeled and all of those things, but getting that label, if you will, early on allowed me to seek the support and get the extra help that I really needed.
Mhm.
So, it was caught early on, and, I think, I when I look back at school, it's kind of almost like I blocked it out of my life, like, blocked it out. I mean,
Yeah.
school was really, really challenging, and I think it's a level of vulnerability and, I'm gonna use the word trauma, as a young child when your peers are moving at a certain level and you don't even feel like you're able to follow. And so the
Yep.
moments of, having to go up to the whiteboard and answer a question
Oh.
or having to read, I mean, this is just like the panic and the fear.
Yes.
Talk about being not prepared. Like it's just the worst. And
Yeah.
so I believe like I became really like kind of street smart and savvy. I became the class clown. I like anything to draw attention away from the fact that I was struggling with the words on the paper
Mhm.
or the numbers on the paper. I just kind of, was obnoxious in different ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I always found like I mean, I homeschooled from a decently young age, but in grade school, what you just said, in the classroom, I was just mortified the teacher would call on me to read, the paragraph because I couldn't read until I was in, like, 6th grade. I even
mhm.
then, I was pretty bad, and thank God I ended up going to a specialist and getting, like, one-on-one learning, which I always think if there's anyone out there I want to talk about it because there's probably a lot of people listening that have dyslexia, and it's really hard when you're younger because you're embarrassed and everyone else is
Mhm.
learning so much quicker than you, like you mentioned. And, you feel like you have to fill this space, like you said, in other areas. And, um, I always say it's just you learn in a different way. It's not that you're quote unquote stupider or dumber than anyone else. It's
Mhm.
just you learn differently and you need different techniques and you need kind of that one-on-one time and so once I kind of unlocked that, it really helped me, but it's so hard if you're in just a public school and trying to keep up with everybody. But to your point too, I think a lot of people with dyslexia like yourself, you're so street smart, you're so good with people, even what you do now, you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if you feel like that, but I feel like for us dyslexic, it's an advantage in the day-to-day world.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest strengths that began to form within me because of the limitations of dyslexia is that I have insane pattern recognition. So like my ability to like read patterns and feel where gaps and holes are, like even if I'm working on SOPs within our company right now or building out certain things, like I can feel where the holes are. I can't always maybe articulate that or like close the gap of those holes, but I can feel things. So I have like really interesting pattern recognition. I can see it like in behavioral patterns or things like that with my clients as I continue to get to know them and can work with them to
Yeah.
eliminate those patterns or level up in those patterns. Like that is something that I really came out of having those differences and like memorization. Like, I mean, half the stuff we couldn't learn, so we just memorized it,
Yeah.
regurgitated it, and then moved on, you know?
And then forget
Um,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
And so like photographic memory, like there's just all this really interesting stuff. But I think the pattern recognition is like kind of feels like one of my more super strengths that came out of having dyslexia.
Mm,
Um,
That's
yeah.
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
thanks for sharing.
I've
Go
seen it
KG.
firsthand, just like Cam's strength. We probably didn't meet until you must have been 26 or 27, and I'm 5 years younger. So I didn't know all this with Cammie, but the first thing that I noticed is just like how intuitive you are and how self aware you are, and also socially aware. And I think that led to obviously in our sports realm to be a great leader. So there's definitely been some
Mhm.
strengths of what you learned, which I'm sure were tough times when you were young, but
Absolutely. And I think also asking for help, like calling in help, like Kaylee brings that up, but Kaylee was again 10, 10 years younger, or you're not 10 years younger than
no,
me.
I'm like
That's too
5.
much.
Don't worry, I'm
Okay.
5.
Whoa. I was like, wait.
Easy.
But she came on the team and she just like got all the plays really easily. She had really great vision of the game. Kaylee's like a true student of the game. And using my like pattern recognition, scanning the audience, I like figured out who actually was the best at capturing the plays and being able to read all of like the plays that we had. And I went up to her as a 29-year-old third Olympic veteran. And I was like, hey, so your responsibility is going to be what your responsibility is in knowing the plays for you and where you're supposed to go. But I also need you to do the same for me. And she was
Mm,
like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like we're going to go through all these plays together. But like when the coach runs the play, I'm probably going to know where I need to go, but I'm going to look at you and I need you to remember where I'm supposed to go to. And she was like,
I love
yeah, I
that.
can do that. And I was like, okay, perfect. And there was like, no, Kaylee says like, there's no ego in it. And it's like, no, it's survival. Like
Yeah,
you call in help when you don't have the skill. There's someone who
yeah.
does, and you call in help. And that's like, I mean, that's a perfect example of just like being able to lean on others where you don't have the ability to, or you struggle to, and knowing that I needed to be sharp in those moments. And I had to basically call in help on that.
Well, I was glad I could be your help. We're going
Yeah.
to dive back a little bit to water polo. So, you're in San Ynez, you go to 2 years of high school there, but then you transfer to Santa Barbara to get a little bit more recognition. Santa Barbara is known as a pretty big water polo hub. That's where a lot of the eyes are for college, and at that time, you could see how great you were becoming and knew that there was potential to maybe get a scholarship and maybe go to college and graduate as the first ever from your family. So who made that decision? How did that decision go down? It was obviously a pivotal moment in your career.
Yeah. I think, as maybe I was developing and growing in water polo, I was really, really struggling with the support and classes in Santa Ynez. So we had moved from what were like 45-minute classes where you do, 6 classes a day, to 2-hour block schedule. So I was in class for like 2-hour blocks and I was just struggling. I was struggling with the resource program, which is like where we get additional help from teachers with our learning differences, and I was truly starting to drown at San Ynez academically. And I was, doing anything and everything that I could to get my head above water. But the challenge was like not even just the academics, but it was the the staff as well, like the teachers, and really battling the teachers and really kind of having to advocate for my rights to just be on equal playing field as other students within this in the school. And so, there became this kind of um big deal that I was transferring for athletics, but really at the end of the day, like athletics weren't going to matter pretty soon, and college probably wouldn't have been in the cards if I didn't really find a high school that was going to support me academically. And
Mm.
so we ended up like going to all kinds of different, high schools in the greater area and interviewing their resource program and what were, the things that they could do to support me as a student with learning differences. And Santa Barbara High not only had that, but it also had a predominant water polo program as well. And
Shout out the
so,
Dons.
yes, once a Don, always a Don.
Heck yeah.
And so I ended up transferring to Santa Barbara halfway through my sophomore year. I sat out my sophomore year of water polo. So I only did 3 years of high school polo. And, it was a big sacrifice because CIF got involved. They were trying to say that I was being recruited.
Right.
My high school didn't want to release me. It was like all of this drama around, just a kid who like was struggling to read. Like, it's like, come on, guys.
And now all
my
these
E's and
athletes,
D's.
yeah,
I
and
know.
all these athletes jump left and right and get recruited now. Like, there's no big deal, get paid.
Exactly. So with that being said, my family actually relocated to Santa Barbara. So there wasn't any issues. We were in the district, like we could now be free to do that. And so, as a 15-year-old kid, your whole family moves out of your family home. My parents bought the property, built the home, like our whole family, it's like it was a big deal. And so really my parents were outstanding in regards to saying like, you focus on school, you focus on water polo, we'll handle the rest on our end, and you just show up and you do your job. And that's what I did, and was able to earn a full ride scholarship to USC.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I know your parents and they've been supportive since day one, clearly, which is amazing. So your time at USC, it was obviously, a whole change of scenery from your San Ynez Valley girl to
Oh my
USC,
God.
like South Central LA. And there
Oh,
you really rise to success. I mean, obviously you took a year off to compete in the '08 Beijing Olympics, which we will get to, but more so in just your USC career, your back-to-back Catino Awards that I mentioned earlier with the Heisman Trophy of water polo, and you finally got that NC2A ring your senior year as one of the captains in 2010. So I just want to dive into a little bit, obviously, just your experience at USC and then how that got you to the next stage of your water polo career.
yes. And just to paint a picture, like the only college campus I had been on at that point was like UCSB because we would train there for club. And I think maybe we had like a junior Olympics at Stanford, but like I didn't come from a family who had a college background. So I wasn't going like growing up going to football games. Like, like college wasn't even, I'm like, was just trying to like get through each year of school. So we go to do like this junior day at SC. And I remember I was driving in my own car. My parents were in their own car, and we pull off Vermont and South Central, and we're cruising down the street to get to campus. And I'm like seeing all the bars on the windows of all of the shops. And I'm like, what? Like I was raised to never like pull off the freeway in LA. And I was like, where are my parents taking me? Like I
We
was
aren't
like,
in Kansas anymore.
Polo,
Literally.
get back in the car. We're not getting out.
Oh my gosh, that's
So
funny.
we arrived to campus, but obviously SC has like this insane bubble that is around it. And so you enter into this whole different world and space. And immediately I knew, like, I kind of got this feeling of like, this is where I want to be. And I think, South Central or not, I mean, SC, you're in the bubble. There's so much support. There's so many resources. There's so much structure. Like, I think we came from such just a high performing um, program. And it was like the professionalism that was expected from us in that program was top notch. Like, even at times I felt comparable or even bypassed what the professional standards of the national team was.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so down to like how you're recovering, how you're journaling, how you're watching video, what you're eating, what you're putting in your body. And then, I'm at this incredible university, and I'm, training with the national team, training with USC, and having to be a college student. And I had,
And have
tutors
fun.
and have fun. And I had tutors stacked up for every class. I had extra tutors just to sit and watch me do homework. Like I was just
Oh, heck
like,
yeah.
calling in everything and everyone for support and help. I mean, it was literally took a village to get me through all of that. It was insane. And so I just think we've got a great university, we have a great program,
Yeah.
and I was well taken care of, and there was absolutely a team working around me so that I could experience that success that I had at SC, and it was a lot of water polo. You know, I shared one semester I had at USC. I was driving to Long Beach for 6.5 hours worth of training on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then back down in South Central, going to 4 classes, lifting with the SC team and training in the evenings with them. And I did that for,
Jeez.
4 months, 4
That
months
was that
preparing
was
for
leading
world.
into Beijing, right?
That was leading into Beijing and it was leading into world champs. And I was just like, just existing, like just existing.
Yeah, it's such a gnarly sport. People don't realize how hard water polo is. I mean, I only know a tiny bit because I played when I was young, but people do not. It is the hardest sport ever to play physically, and then the training outside of it is also it's so intense. So
Well, we
kudos to you
train
guys.
6.5 hours a day,
Yeah,
6
I
days
mean,
a week for a 45-minute to an hour game.
yeah, yeah.
Like, that alone will tell you, like, the amount of training that goes in just to play such a short game. You know, it's not like a football game or a soccer game. Like, it's
Yeah,
45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. No, no.
totally.
Good on you. Go,
So
Katie.
you ended up with a NC2A title. I mean, just quickly tell us about that because you had some heartbreakers leading up to that. This is your senior year, your last chance. You're with, a bunch of other very close seniors who haven't had the opportunity to win a national championship. You guys just committed on to another level that you didn't even know existed. And will you share a little bit about that commitment and what it felt like to reach the top?
Yeah, I think, the USC-UCLA rivalry is real. Like, I lost to them 3 times until we got to the finals,
No.
so I know, it's like, it's real. And so I think, going into that senior year, it was really hard transitioning back into my junior year following the year that I took off from the Olympics. And so my junior year was super clunky, trying to find my feet, trying to figure out who I was, returning from the national team and back into college water polo, bringing my experience. And like I was leading in such a funky way that was so inauthentic to who I was that I had to really start figuring out my identity, like, as an individual and as a person, understanding, like, what are my true authentic leadership skills and really leaning into those because I kinda lost myself a bit in my junior year trying to be basically a mini Jovan, which is our coach. He was super gnarly, super intense, and
We've
for
talked about
spearheading.
Jovan. People know.
Oh, yeah, he's a whole different machine, and, to try to, be him was, like it wasn't fun for me, it wasn't fun for my teammates, and
Yeah.
yeah. So, my senior year, I definitely am finding more joy, I'm definitely finding ways to be more authentic to myself, and, with that being said, I was able to make more authentic connections, have a lot more fun with leading the team. And that year we had 4 senior captains, which kind of feels like wild to have 4 captains. But for whatever reason, it really worked for our team. And we were 4 incredibly different humans with different strengths. And just to even get to the point to not have ego, but also see each other for where our challenges were individually, but also our strengths and allow us to lead differently across the board, but trust that we were all carrying the same standards, expectation, and message. I think that shared leadership and that kind of pushed effort really allowed us to reach the top. And I think we spent a lot of time together outside of the water. Like we were eating meals together, we were doing like potlucks together, we were going out together. We were we really, really remained a unit for those 3 months of that season. And I think that kind of building of trust and rapport and commitment and buy-in to each other inevitably helped lead us to that NCAA championship.
That's
Wow.
amazing. So you leave on top, and then I want you to briefly explain to our listeners, because they don't totally understand water polo, but after that, you continued to play abroad to continue to stay in
Mhm.
shape for the national team. So, A, what was that competition like? What was that experience like going to somewhere in Europe and not knowing the same language? You're all alone. It's kind of cold out. It's winter time, whatever it was. And then
Yeah.
what was the reason for that to continue your career?
Yeah, I listened to your guys' first episode because I'm such a big fan of this podcast.
Yes. Heck
Um,
yes.
but you guys were I mean, Lakey, I think you had brought up, like, I want people to know how hard it is to train
Yes.
or,
Yep.
like, to travel.
To
Travel
travel,
with
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And I think, like, there's a little bit of overlap with, like, going abroad. I think you had spoken to, and this may not have been your exact words, but what came up for me when you were saying it is, like, it's so glamorized. Traveling the world and, like, doing your sports and seeing different, and there's no doubt there's such a value and a joy and a privilege we have in that,
Yeah.
and what it's like to be away from your family, that team that's behind you, like
Yeah.
your food, your training resources, your language, the ability to just get normal things done in your day, like stop by the post office or mail things out. Like,
Mhm.
little things become a little bit different when you're living in Greece and you don't speak the language, and they're operating in a whole different way, and they're in an economic downfall and like nothing's open. Like, it was wild. Greece was my first season, and I think, like, being abroad is lonely, and it's challenging, and you're playing a game in a different system. Your teammates don't speak English. If they do, there's maybe one or two.
Yeah.
It's, like, insanely routine. You don't have a ton of time to go and explore that country, but you do a little bit around the edges, and, we're young and we don't make any money. So it's, like, not even like we could go live it up. Like, I'm like in Greece, it's like I can't even, like, go buy a nice dinner. I'm like, you know.
Give me some
So
olive.
yeah, exactly. And so it's a grind, but it's also fantastic. I think, now I've got a handful of girls around the world. I got to play in Greece, Italy, and Australia and Spain. Um, you grab a few teammates that are kind of lifers out of that, and you start to understand different cultures. You can bring back what you loved about it. You leave what you didn't quite enjoy from it. And, you're getting a window into a different type of training and style, and there's just value in it. You're
Yeah.
keeping those international touches that you wouldn't have if you're sitting in the US training on your own.
Okay.
No, the reason for that is unfortunately the US doesn't have a national team like our or a national league. Our highest season is collegiate and it's great. Like college competition is amazing and it's high level, but you do 4 years of that and you're done. So you go like, okay, where do I go next? You're only 22 years old, but you want to still continue the Olympic dream. So that's why so many
Mm.
people go to Europe or even Australia to continue to play because they have this national league and the system set in place to allow you to continue and to get a little bit of money to continue to play polo.
Ah, I didn't realize that. That makes way more sense in my mind now. I mean, I knew people went over there and went abroad a ton, but is that annoying that they don't have that set up here in the States? Do you guys get frustrated with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would take so much resources and effort to get a high level competition. Maybe not so much, but it's a lot of time and effort and money. And the sport just doesn't really produce that much money. So you would be asking a lot for
Mm.
somebody to set it up. I know USA Water Polo's done a decent amount for the guys. They have a national league now, and they're trying to start that up with the
Mhm.
women's as well. And that's an opportunity to continue to play. There's masters, but the level's not high enough if you wanted to be the best you can be, you go to
Yeah.
Europe to play. And this is coming from me
Yeah.
who I never went abroad. So I figured it out
All
somehow.
good.
So but I understand how important it is and can see how it works well for a majority of people to do that.
I'd be
I want to.
curious too, like how many international superstars, like in our sport, our superstars would come and play in a US league. Like who wants to live here in this country? Who wants to experience this? Like who would be about it, you know? So it'd be
I bet we would
interesting.
get a decent amount for sure. Somebody maybe on their tail end of their career having some fun. But it's hard to
Yeah.
leave if you're getting paid and you're just like comfortable at home and you have your routines. Like I understand why people stay and train over there, and it is high level. You know, you go and it's basically you're going for a championship every year over there.
I this is a side note story, we don't have much time, so I'll go over it quick, but we were traveling when I was young, and we were in Hungary, and we went to, like, this pool, me, my mom, and my sister, we were on a family trip, and they're like, "Just jump in for the local water polo clinic," me, my mom, and my sister, and we get in, and we play well, all of a sudden, all the 3 of us are on a team, and I just look over, and my mom is getting dominated by some chick, and I was like, "Mom, are you okay?" And my sister is not the both water athletic person, and she was getting I was like, "What is even happening here?" And it was
Oh
like
my
the little
god!
YMCA whatever, it was so funny.
Oh
So
my
I
anyways,
love
god! Yeah.
shout out
your
to them,
mom
they're a lot
would
of fun.
sign you guys up for that. Your mom would be like, "Get in." I saw her at the Carp like community pool the other day swimming. I'm like, "What's up? How's
She
it
loves
going?"
it.
She's like
Oh
in the
yeah.
mix, cap and
Oh.
She's in it.
goggles. She's doing it.
So funny.
Lakey had to run everybody. The time change in Australia to the US is tough and there's short windows, but this conversation's too good to end. So we're going to continue with just Cammie and I, which don't worry, we like to talk. Um, Cam, we talked about your collegiate career. We talked a little about you going broad, which I know is kind of all intertwining this national team career, but we want to hear about the national team. In '08, you had that heartbreaker. You won the silver medal, came back in 2012, first ever gold with Team USA water polo, and 2016, you backed it up with another gold. So just share your experiences on the national team, maybe a few stories. I know you've got millions and what you've learned.
Yeah, I think, you were sharing a little bit about the successes and thinking about my national team experience. I'm like a true product of the pipeline. So I was on the youth team, then the junior team, and eventually made it to the senior team. And the senior team is what eventually becomes the Olympic team. And, I think about that journey and my initial tryout with the youth team. I didn't make it. I was cut from that team and missed that opportunity. The following year, I made the youth team. The first time I tried out for the junior team, I didn't make it. Then the following year, I was on the junior team. Um, and, I experienced success with the youth and junior team. But then, sprinkled in, I have those losses in NCAAs and in our national championship tournaments. And, um, there was a lot of time where I wasn't experiencing success or these gold medals, which are easy to list, but when you play for 13 years on the national team, you've got some things listed out there.
Yeah.
So I just think about like it took a while to kind of find my flow and find my way. And I joined the national team probably at 18, 19 years old. And we were competing and training for the 2008 Olympics. And I was the youngest on that team as well. There was a handful of us that all came from USC. And in the later half of that quad, like the year and a half leading up to the Beijing Games, our team was very young, very green, but we were very dominant. And so we internationally had gone undefeated for a year and a half. So we were truly favored for gold going into the 2008 Olympics. And for those who are listening and may not know, women's water polo debuted in 2000, and the women's US program won a silver medal there. And then in 2004, they had won bronze. And, there were, I think we had two gals that had competed in the 2000 and 2004 Olympics, and they were looking to get that gold that they had not gotten yet. And so that's a little bit in the back of my mind as well. They're committing to their 12th year on the national team and chasing that gold medal. And we had gone over to Beijing probably 2 weeks early prior to the Olympics, and we had done a training camp with Holland. And in this training camp, we did a bunch of scrimmages, and we were beating Holland 16-3, 18-2, 15-4. Like, we were just smoking them in this
Yeah.
training. And really, for us, that was a great confidence booster that we were where we were at. We needed to do what we needed to do, and we were going to go into this Olympic tournament, feeling great. And so we do what we're supposed to do in bracket play. We do great in our first crossover, and we do great in our next crossover, and then it's time to play in the finals. And lo and behold, who do we match up in the finals but Holland? And remember, just a week and a half earlier, 2 weeks earlier, we were doing this training camp with them. And I think, I will take ownership of our team and our responsibility, but I also will include our coaching staff in that, and in the way that we kind of relaxed or felt that we had it before we had even started that final game. There was this kind of giddiness, or we got it in the bag nature because we had just had that experience in the training camp. And, anyone who watches sports, participates in sports, should know better. And so whether it was conscious or subconscious, there was this kind of like exhale out, thinking that we were just going to go in and, I don't know, beat them 15-3. I don't know what we were thinking. And so what was interesting about that is we went into that game doing things just a little bit differently. Like, our pregame talk was a little bit different. Something that was different about that game is that the game ahead of us, the bronze medal game, went into overtime. And we didn't have like a protocol for what happens if you had to spend another 20 minutes in the holding area. Like, how do we stay warm? Like, what do we do? So we like became really disjointed and and Holland had a plan. Like, they just went straight into action. And so, some of us went to continue to warm up, some of us didn't. And we were a very like disciplined, like, we had a system for everything team at that time. And so jazz improv wasn't really built into this group.
Yeah.
And so we just it just was a funky start. And so we go into this final and we are down 4-0 immediately. Like, and we end up scraping the entire way back. We call a timeout with 20 seconds left in the game. We have possession of the ball and we're down by 1. Again, I'm the youngest on the team. There's a senior 2-meter player, and I'm the backup 2-meter player. And she's been in every after goal game. Or after goal play. She's been in any like end of game situations. And the coach subs me in. And immediately I'm thinking like, oh, did you say my name? Because I think you meant, the other center, and puts me in. So I'm in these last 20 seconds to try to tie the game, to try to go into overtime and try to win a gold medal. And ball comes into me. I am like being held double-handed by Ifka van Belken, who's like, 6'2", Dutch woman, super
And
strong.
Didn't she score
Yeah.
didn't she score 7 goals that game too?
No, that was De Bruyne.
Somebody
So,
Oh, yeah.
which one, I don't even remember that happened. Like, I just think like we're all in ultra, like no one on the bench said anything. It was just really interesting. Like,
Yeah.
we struggled in that game, and ball comes into set. I'm
But
able
you
to
did
kick
your
it out.
job.
Yeah, I do my job. Ball comes into set. I kick it out, get it out of there because I'm not going to be able to get a shot off. Elsie Wine grabs it. She fakes a few times, shoots on the cage. As she's shooting, Brenda's driving. The ball lands in front of Brenda because it ricochets off the bar. Brenda picks it up, shoots it. The goalie blocks it, but it lands in front of Brenda again. She picks it up and shoots it. It's blocked again, and the final buzzer rings. And like,
Ugh.
I remember feeling like a horse had kicked me in the stomach, and I just like, the sound I made, I was just like, "Ugh," like, it came out of my mouth like I'd never made that sound in my life. And I could not believe we had just lost a gold medal. Like, it didn't even feel real, and we were at the cage furthest away from the bench, so then I had to, like, swim all the way across the pool looking at all my teammates crying. I mean, it was just slow motion, horrible, like, probably one of the worst pains that I've experienced in loss, in my, water polo career. And, I think, there were quite a bit of returners from that 2008 team into 2012, and I think a lot of us really wanted that redemption. We really wanted what we knew we were capable of doing, and so I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we had
You
7
guys were on a
returners.
mission.
Totally, and we weren't, the youngest, we weren't the most athletic, we weren't, but we were very seasoned, we had a lot of experience, and we had a lot to learn from, and that was the experience of Beijing and what it was like to win a silver medal, um, which is, like, not that fun, by the way, like, it's just not, know? Um, and so that changed everything. It changed everything in regards to how I prepared, how we prepared as a team. We went through a coach change at that time. We went from a coach that, like, was very much system oriented, like, you don't break the system, like, this is how we do things, to now a coach that's a little bit more willing to give ownership to the team, and so there's not really clear black and white lines, and, those 7 returners are kind of freaking out because they're like, "No, you gotta tell us what to do, not, like,
Right.
allow us to figure out what to do." And we started with a lot more than 7 returners, and I think 3 to 4 girls quit because of the style, and just thought it was like chaos, know? Um, and so, we really had to start building this independence and this muscle to start thinking on our own and develop our own ownership of the team. And as uncomfortable as that was, taking a hyper disciplined team that was high performing and allowing them some flexibility and freedom and the ability to think and gain ownership on their own was probably the best thing that could have happened to
Yeah.
us. Um, because we went into 2012, obviously we brought what we had learned from 2008, but there was this moment, and our coach Adam Krikorian talks about it, where he called a timeout in the semifinals. It wasn't his call to make, and so it led to um, Australia being able to take a penalty shot, which tied the game at the end of the semifinals. And, it was a big whoopsie on his
Yeah.
part.
That's crazy. That's like the biggest mistake you can make in coaching, essentially.
Yes. And, it's his first Olympics. It's a like this pivotal moment. And he's, like, kind of having this moment as he would of, like, "What did I just do?" I'm sure he's, like, going in this outer body experience.
Yeah.
And what was so cool is we were so connected to the coach being in the leadership role in our past experience, and we had been given so much ownership of, like, playing for the girls in the pool and not just the guy on the pool deck, that when Adam was having this moment, like, there's pictures of him kind of in the background, and the team is just, like, in the huddle, pumping each other up, saying what needed to be
So
said,
cool.
like, yeah, like, we're, here we are, the refs are trying to get USA again, this is how it goes, we were all fired up. And, like, whatever time it took for Adam to come back into his body and move forward into that overtime period, like, the team had taken care of the gap, and he had fell through the cracks, and we just caught him, and I really felt in 2008, like, we had all fallen through the cracks and nobody had the muscle or ability to catch anybody. Like, we just all kind of sunk together. And so there was
Yeah.
layers of accountability and ownership, and that muscle was trained within us. And I think, Adam tells a story, like, that's when I knew we were going to win a gold medal, is when the team came together in that moment and rose to the occasion. And um and so I just think, like, that really changed everything. And for the girls that didn't experience losing in 2008, there's this moment where I shared a journal entry with the 2012 team about my fears, my concerns, the pain, what it felt like to experience that loss in the finals of the Olympics, and really kind of reaching out to my team and saying like, please, I do not want you to experience that, and I don't want you to allow me to experience that again. And I'm asking us to, tighten where we need to tighten, come together where we need to come together, and like do what we're supposed to do and take it seriously, because you don't want to experience that. And I don't want to experience either. So it was like really this kind of moment of like, okay, what are we committing to here? And how are we carrying each other's dreams to the top of the podium?
Yeah, you mentioned those two athletes. Shout out to Brenda Villa and Heather Petrie. What was it like? They were a part of this program for 12 plus years, never reached the podium until those London Games. What was it like? Obviously, it was amazing for you, but to see your fearless leaders finally on top.
Yeah, I'm actually getting goosebumps right now
I
as
know,
you
I
talk
am
about it.
too.
Yeah, it was major. Like we had just won our first gold medal in program history, so we were a part of making history. We had 7 returners who experienced that loss together, and then you have, as you said, Heather um, Petrie and Brenda Villa, who were on their 4th Olympic Games chasing that gold medal. And so that's 16 years, you guys, of like just the grind to receive this gold medal. And like watching them, it like makes me cry, but watching them like receive that gold medal around their neck, it's like, oh my gosh, go take a nap, like go do whatever you want to do, like you earned it, like you made it, and so that was like, it was so special to be a part of that. And I remember, thinking back in that tournament, there's special moments throughout that Olympic Games. And that was huge. And then to like feel and experience that surreal moment of our flag being raised and hearing the national anthem, and it's like this dream that you dreamt of,
Yeah,
since you were a little kid. I would pretend and performed it in my backyard of what it was going to be like, and then to actually experience, it's like it's unbelievable. You're just kind of sitting in awe and a little bit of shock after that, and you're exhausted too. You've
yeah,
like held so much focus and so much energy and so much preparation, and then it's just this kind of like it's like this big release. And then we got to
totally.
experience, and we got to take that playbook and experience again in 2016. And it's just interesting. There is a little bit of a difference in my experience and a role on the team being a veteran, and again feeling a lot more responsible for my younger teammates' dreams than
And we
even
had
my
a lot of younger teammates.
exactly. And so, like, really wanting to allow for space for us to do it our way and do it differently, because we were very different than the 2012 team, but also feeling very responsible for making sure, in my mind, we were hitting certain markers behind the scene. And, just again, carrying, like, I'm responsible for 12 other women's dream, and just wanting to make sure like I did my part and really help facilitate that across the team.
Yeah.
And being the veteran, I was like, this is my responsibility. And so I think at times
Yeah.
that felt heavy, versus like being 23, 24, and
Do,
eventually
do, do, do,
25 on
do.
the London New. And I'm like, woo, we're not doing this. Like I'm gonna work hard and do my part, and it's all gonna be great. And it's like, there's like some
Yeah.
of those girls probably, looking back, were carrying a lot more weight than I would probably even have recognized. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. My 16 quad, like, I was like, let's go surfing in between practices. Let's go to coffee in between games. Like, this is fun. Cool. Yeah. And then 2024, like, yeah, you definitely feel the weight, and you only learn that until you're in that position for sure. There's so much that
Mhm.
pops up. Like, I've heard these stories before and I still get goosebumps. I mean, we just geek out over the sport of water polo. Like, we both of us love it. But the first thing that comes to mind, when did you have that Olympic dream for the first time? You shared a little bit about the junior, the cadet team and all that, but again, your background from Sandy Inez, like, When did that come into your mind?
Yeah, so I was watching what probably was I was like around 7 years old, and I was watching the Olympics in our living room. And like, obviously, I wanted to be a gymnast, and it wasn't in the cards for me at 6 foot at 12 years old. So,
Yeah.
but we have like a big family room. I was watching the TV, I was performing my gymnastics routine in the living room, and just all about it. It was just running the whole 2 weeks. And my mom shares this memory. She said, my feet were up on the TV stand and I was laying beneath the TV, my feet up, kind of swinging back and forth. And without even turning around, I just said, I'm going to be in the Olympics one day. And like, I don't have any memory of this, but my mom holds it. And my mom's like, okay, whatever. And lo and behold, like it just happened. But
Yeah.
and I just remember like constantly playing that last like buzzer beater in the
Yeah.
backyard, at a basketball hoop in the backyard. I was always like slamming the volleyball against, the side of the house, I was rolling, like I was doing all kinds of activities in the house, and I'd always like perform that buzzer beater or that like the crowd goes wild and I'm like, yeah, like we won,
Yeah.
and just playing out those situations. And so it's so funny, like whether that does, I believe it does something. We've been playing that out since we were kids. I'm sure you've dreamt and played out those scenarios so many times. And so like it becomes surreal to experience it. And it's like, no, I've been sitting in the buzzer beater moment since I was like 8, 9, 10 in the
Yeah.
backyard.
No, it's so fun. I
I've been
think that's one of
training
my
that partner.
yeah, it's like one of my favorite questions to ask teammates, because it's everyone had a dream at one point, and the road to get there is their own individual road and it's unique to themselves. So I always get geeked out over that, but I love to hear that story. And then this isn't a question. This is just a story I remember, and this is it must have been 2015. It was full-time training. So it was 2015 leading into 2016. Cammie is the only player on that team to have gone to 2008. So she has this background of this old school culture with, a different type of system and coach, and had that terrible loss. And here we are, coming in, a lot of us young for the 2016 quad, and our sports psych made us watch the 2008 finals versus Holland. And it was the first time I believe you watched it. And we are sitting in the team room, and to make, I mean, it was like a pretty gnarly activity for you. Like, we made you relive that trauma. But for us, at least I think for a majority of the teammates, it opened our eyes of like how badly this could hurt and how you really do only have one shot or one opportunity at this. And it kind of got our you know, kind of got us all together and united and being like, oh crap, we don't want this to happen. We don't want to see teammates that hurt. We don't want to be that hurt ourselves. And we don't want to be crying watching a finals, you know, 8 years later. And I think that was a moment that united our team for sure. At least for me, I know I've always been close to you, but that was a pretty heavy moment.
That's so funny. It all blends together. I think it was not the first time that we had watched it, but it would have been my second time. Our sports psych had done that for the 7 returners that came back for 2012, and it was
Okay.
just us 7 returners in the team room going to watch this final. And what's
Oh,
crazy is, like, if you know Brenda Villa, she's, like, such a a geek about water polo as we are, but she's, like, a whole 'nother level. And,
yeah.
she watches video over, and she thinks about things critically, and she thinks about it like she is, like, up there in the truest student of the game. And she hadn't even seen it. All 7 of us returners had not revisited that game. We'd all created our own kind of reality about it. We all had remembered things differently. And, we just like kind of sat in there and like cried and watched and like were surprised and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't remember that. And, it was really interesting. And video is tough. Like I
It
always
doesn't
remember
lie.
like yeah, so anytime we'd go into a video session, we'd be like walking into the team room, I'd always yell, "The video doesn't lie." Get ready, ladies. You know,
Buckle
'cause you're
up.
just
Here we go.
vulnerable. You're fully having to own and be accountable for those mistakes. And yeah, so that was I mean, the therapeutic. I don't know. It was probably good to watch it and keep it moving, but to this day, I've only watched that finals game twice, and obviously it was with my 12 girls, and we watched it in 16. So, and I probably won't watch it
Some people function differently. You know, I watched the
anymore.
Paris games the week I got home to try to understand what the hell went wrong, but it was again
Yeah,
is very therapeutical and it's hard and it's you got
yeah,
to be honest with yourself. You know, I think the blame game on a team sport is so easy. And it I think spreads like wildfire, but as soon as you take the ownership and really look at yourself and your own individual play, is where you can actually excel the most and have that growth period. Which was
absolutely.
hard for me in Paris because I was like, I don't know if I'm ever playing water polo again. So this just sucks and this hurts and I don't know where to put all of this emotion and how am I going to better myself as a person, you know, when I miss my block at blah 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 or you know, or the X's and
Totally.
O's of water polo. So that's been my personal challenge. But
Well,
I
and
want to
even watching your Paris game, Kaylee, like I would even say, like watching your guys' journey, like that is relived pain from
yeah.
2008. Like I was just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to be in it, but I was like on the floor. I was just so sad for you guys because I knew the feeling. And it's like we all feel it differently. No one's pain is greater or less, but it's like, man, I was hurting for you guys. I just wanted to be, like, in the bus on the way home and just, like, being there, you know?
I
You
know.
just
I
wanna go
remember
run.
like the first week, you know, I obviously got married pretty much directly after and we went for a walk and I was like couldn't wait to go on this walk with you to vent because you know obviously so many of the players, you know the coaching staff, you know the system, you know what it's like to lose. You were one of the only few people that I could actually talk to because you're in this state of like grief as individuals and no one on the team was ready to talk about it yet, I think.
Sure.
Or nor
Mhm.
maybe I just didn't want to talk to them, which is very true and natural and normal as well. But also there's other crap going on that was, like, real life crap that you don't wanna bring up, like, you know, your water polo game feels insignificant to some of the stuff that was going on at that time too. So, I
Mhm.
remember I was, like, salivating to go on a walk with you, and I just think you just let me l like, you literally just let me talk for, like, 2 hours, and in a way, it was, like, very therapeutical and just hearing your side of things too because you've been through that, I don't know, it helped, and it's crazy just to learn from different experiences and share and just be able to lean on one another, and I guess that's what teammates for life are for too.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, like, what was different even about what you had experienced in Paris, I think it's just, like, it's interesting for listeners to hear, like, really, how do you get through challenges like that and find your way back through or even close that chapter. So like
Yeah.
when we lost in 2008, like I was 2 weeks late to starting school and training. So I was just thrusted right back in and was moving right away, and here you were challenged with Paris of like there is not a next practice. There's not a next, there's not that next thing. So like what happens when you really have to sit with that grief and that anger, that frustration, the shame, maybe embarrassment, it's like probably array of feelings. And how do you actually get through that so it's not living in you?
Yeah. I'll
And
tell you what
like it's
happens. Panic
yeah, you
attack
tell it.
panic attacks happen. You're like, "Damn it, my body's
Totally.
telling me I have to deal with this stuff."
Totally. Totally.
Uh,
But
so
I
going
mean,
back,
go ahead.
I just wanted to, you know, pick your brain. Obviously now we'll dive into what you're doing now, but at Mindful Warrior, you're working a lot within culture. And I think that's something that you did so well. And I made this comment earlier, but you were the only one from '08 on our 2016 quad. And you were a part of this, you know, dynasty, so to say. You know, the program had so much success in 13 years, won basically a little bit of everything. And I just wanted to know what you learned and how our culture evolved and what you learned and who are some of the players that push you the most to dive into the culture aspect of things.
Yeah. So when I think about culture within our team environment of the national team, there's that ability to bring again that pattern recognition and understanding, and there there is a little bit of the culture that holds like USA water polo and the US women's water polo team intact. Like there's culture things that are like our agreed upon standards and expectations. Like we're on time, we, represent our country well externally, we wear, our uniform, we put our equipment away, we take care of our equipment, we follow it, like just those kind of professional standards. And then you've got another lane of culture of like what is it to actually start bringing a team together and start building trust and rapport and connection within the team. And we've got a bunch of individuals with 13 at the end of the day, but we train with a bit more of that in the quad, who are coming from different elite programs in the collegiate system. We've got UCLA, we've got Stanford, we've got, all these teams that actually compete against each other. And then we all come together on the national team. And then you've got your different personalities, and you've got people who grew up in different generations. You've got individuals that have grown up with different standards and expectations within their homes. We've all experienced probably challenges in different ways that shape how we manage stress. And so when you think about trying to bring all of those personalities together, it can be really, it takes time. It's like a barge turning in the sea. It's not something that happens quickly. And you can have all the talent in the world, but if someone doesn't trust you and doesn't pass you the ball, that we've got some bigger issues. If someone's not respecting the work that you're putting in alongside of them, it's going to make things really challenging. And so, I really thought about, I don't know, just like simple things that I did is like whether the team recognized it or not, I took everybody out for a meal. Like, I went to breakfast with everyone. I made it a point to do a one-on-one meal, hang out with every single one of my teammates, and probably would do a few cycles of that throughout the entire year of full-time training, and really start to understand what that person's about, what makes them tick, like
Yeah.
how are they feeling just sitting in a one-on-one meal with me? Are they squirming? Are they excited? What are they sharing? What are they excited about? What are they not excited about? And really start to understand those personalities, and then understand who were their allies, who did they feel safe around. And if I couldn't directly reach someone, how did I go through their allies to reach them? If they needed things, or did I check in on them directly, or did I check in on them, indirectly? I've watched teammates struggle and have hard practices, and I'm like, get in the car, we're going to get a coffee, like, and so trying to I think trying to assist in building strength and trust and respect. Not We know this, not everybody is best friends on a team.
Yeah.
I have teammates that I love from afar and completely respect and trusted through that process, that I probably will never go out to a meal with, never call up, never hang out
Right.
with. And that's okay, because it was like the trust and respect was in place. We didn't need to be best friends. We actually just needed to be professional partners in this kind of team experience, and and to separate those things, like to not
Yeah.
feel like you have to shove so much into it. There's like just a certain level that you need to be, um to experience healthy culture and a level of psychological safety
Yeah.
within your teammates. um and so, I just think it was like a constant job, and it was, a job that I was excited to take on, that I had felt was positive in the 2012 team. Like 2012 team, I made my team get together weekly away from the pool. I didn't make them, but I basically suggested it and said, this is
Yeah.
what we're going to do. Here are the groups. We're going to play a game every week away from the pool together to build relation and trust and rapport and respect outside of the pool. And it was helpful. It was stupid and it was helpful.
Yeah.
Uh, how we moved outside of the pool together, how we experienced joy together was important. And that's what that team needed because they were so, we were so like, oh, like so serious, so driven, so tight. And we were still needing to kind of figure out play and joy and personality.
Yeah.
So, there's just all these kind of different ways. And when I think about, you know, for me, like a tool that I really learned is just like connection and communication. Like if you can learn to communicate and connect with your teammates on any level, like even if it's just like the teeniest hook of connection or the teeniest channel of communication, like that's where the strength and the web of strength really starts to develop.
And it all starts small. Like when you said that, I imagine it's like one good pass in practice and like the eye nod or spotting
Mhm.
someone in the weight room. Like it doesn't have to be these grandiose gestures. It starts small and goes from there. And I think just hearing you talk, obviously I don't want to make this too much about the Paris quad, but I'm like, I think our culture slipped a bit. Like there was things that
Mhm.
we could have done, and culture is not linear. It goes like this, and you
Yep.
have to be able to call yourself out or have, a coach call yourself out to bring it back up. And you have to almost massage it and work on it. As in any relationship, I feel like culture is the same in that way. And I think you can do it in different ways. Training and working hard makes it happen. Outside of the pool makes it happen. One on ones, connection. Like there's so many different ways to build culture. But I think there's a standard of USA water polo, and it's important to try to upheld that as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like just sensing where the team was at, like knowing
Yeah.
when we were like dialed and knowing when we were too relaxed and and just like feeling that ebb and flow, that culture of that movement of kind of like what was the pulse that we were on
Yeah.
and like were we doing good? Were we not doing good? Like how was that felt? How was that experience? How did you have a read on it? Like all of that is so, so important.
Yeah.
And we just got to speak at USC to the girls program there just 2 days ago, 2 days ago.
I know.
And I think one of the questions was like, if you have a teammate who's injured, and I believe whether a teammate's injured or not, this is how you build trust and rapport. Like, how do you make them feel still included? And I was like, grab them a water bottle, pick up the jacket they forgot, say what's up, take them out for a cup of coffee, like ask how their swim set went. Like it's literally those human moments and small drops of investment into other people and just having your that self-awareness and awareness of others and kind of this head on a swivel that makes such a big difference in building trust and rapport on teams.
Yeah, I mean, something as simple as eye contact. Like, it's crazy that
Yeah.
we have to even talk about eye contact, but, you're walking in the gym or you're walking to the restroom and you're passing a teammate. It's just like an eye contact and, nod. I know, I love that you said it's just, making everyone realizing everyone's human, the human in them, and all we crave
Yeah.
as humans are connections. So
Absolutely.
after Rio, you retired, and I know it was a little bit of a bumpy transition, as I think any athlete has experienced. I don't know if retirement after sport can ever be smooth, or you can ever fully be ready for it. But tell us a little bit about that journey and kind of how you got to where you are today. Your road to getting to Mindful Warrior is pretty cool. Um, you know, I'll let you share about, getting to the corporate life and whatever, and then what you've learned in that transition and something that's worked for you if there's somebody else out here listening about transitions. It doesn't have to be from sport to retirement. I mean, there's life transitions, whether it's graduation or having a baby, marriage, so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think after 2016, I there was the fun because we had just won gold that
There's
came
always
with
the
it.
fun.
And
Yeah.
the fun and the attention and the joy and the like making up for the last, 12 years that I had my head down training with the national team. And then it came time to start figuring out what was next. And I found really quickly that, like, I was seeking for someone to tell me what to do, to tell me what I would like to do, to tell me what I was good at, to tell me, someone to give me any direction. And I was leaning on my family to do that. I was leaning on my partner at the time to do that. I was leaning on team. Like I was just like a hungry ghost looking for anything and anyone to tell me what to do because I'd been in this structure and this routine surrounded by resources and support. And I've always had that next thing and something to do. My calendar was always planned by somebody else. And now, not only was it my full responsibility, like I didn't even have a team to absorb the successes and the failures of it. And so it was back to this like, individual person. I was back to that like little girl in the classroom that like had to own if she could raise her hand and read the paragraph out loud. I was back to having to own all the mistakes and failures that was going to come with figuring out what was next. And I come from my parents, had been in the same job for 45 years. And here I was in a career that I had done for 13 years. Like the thought of starting something and ending it just felt like a failure.
Yeah.
And so I think what ended up happening is just putting support in place, like starting to build that team around me. And that was just like simply swimming with a group and like connecting with my girlfriends and making sure like I was getting out of the house and getting coffees. And then, some resources were more helpful than others through the USOC or USA Water Polo. And some weren't. It felt like the gap was too far
Yeah.
from what I really needed and what I was getting. And I ended up having a teammate from USC who was working in the fitness industry, and they were selling design concepts and fitness equipment. And so we would build out these like beautiful gyms and fitness centers. And I had applied for a sales role, and I was like Miss Olympian, the athlete. Like on paper, it was like perfect. And I think what's really interesting is the longer I spent in that organization, I realized where the challenges really were within that organization, where the challenge in communications were, where the challenge in the lack of psychological safety were, where the challenge in processes were. Like I was able to kind of start attuning to like where those things were, while also getting like that first corporate experience. And I was so grateful
Totally.
that my teammate was in the office with me because I'd be like, help me with this Excel spreadsheet. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So, I spent a year there, and in that year of being there, the a company and program called Rise Athletes came across my table. And what it was they were pairing Olympians or elite athletes with youth athletes. And creating basically a platform where we could mentor youth athletes. And so I started with one or two athletes. I loved it. I was like dumping all my knowledge from the national team, all of my experience onto these, high school age.
Yeah.
And they were predominantly, I started with water polo athletes, obviously, because of where we came from. And I was loving it. So I was really developing this practice and mental skill set coaching and mentorship. And I one day came back from my sales role and I ran some numbers and I was like, okay, if I can obtain this certain amount of athletes and I can still do speaking engagements and camps on the side, like I'm going to be able to meet my base salary and my commission. So I let go of my sales role. I was not, it was not for me. And really dove into building that roster in mentorship with youth athletes. And I have worked with hundreds of athletes in 15 different disciplines of sports, both men and women, from age group up to national team level. And absolutely loved it. I did that for over 5 years, and along the way, I had met some incredible mentors in the executive coaching world, which obviously wasn't working with youth athletes, but with that mentorship, I really got some amazing guidance on training, education, certifications, things along those lines. So I just started collecting while I was doing this mental skill set coaching for athletes and really building my strength as a coach. And then at one point, my mentor, who was in executive coaching, asked if I'd like to come onto her company, which is Mindful Warrior. And so I just hit my 5 year mark with Mindful Warrior.
Wild.
Wild. And I think what is amazing is that she got to see me develop and
Yeah.
acquire all of this education and knowledge, under her guidance and with my own curiosity. And when she hired me on, I'm so grateful because I think this is really important for athletes. We truly do have incredible skills, and we work and see things differently than I think people who haven't had to train at such a high level have to be on teams and have that self-awareness. But she really saw where the gap was and had a great pacing and tempo in how to close that gap for me. And she was able to see kind of on the other side of that gap of what was possible in what I could bring in our executive coaching firm and how I could be excellent. And so I really believe she did some great hand holding and some great pushing of me in
As
the
all
corporate
as
space
all
where I'm like,
mentors do.
as all mentors do. And I just think like I'm so grateful that she could see beyond it and didn't just
Yeah.
assume it. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're a 3 talent and you could do that. You know how to, it's like
You'll figure it
people don't
out.
realize like I'm my peers went into college or graduated college at 20, and I'm entering the work field a decade behind them without
Yeah.
any experience in the working world. I had
Yeah.
just, I had done what I did and I was excellent and a professional there. So, like, if people can help close that gap and like really pass that baton, man, does it set people up. It really sets athletes up. And I think that's where I was really lucky to have a great mentor and feel completely out of my comfort zone coaching C-suite level executives in different industries like wealth management or med tech. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing in this room? Then realizing like, hey, we're all human. So many reps being an individual looking to reach high performance. I have so many reps being on teams and developing culture. And then I have like an incredible toolbox of training, experience, knowledge, and all the things that I've learned and collected over the last 20 years. And then you get the repetition of coaching executives. And so you
Yeah.
just learn along the way. And I mean, I love what I do. I love our clients. I love what they're up to. I love what they're trying to do differently in the corporate space and how they're wanting to lead differently and build culture differently and how to be excellent in healthy ways that are sustainable for them and their fellow C-suite members. Like it's so cool. And like this is what I loved about my role in the national team. And I found what I loved in my role in the national team and I'm applying it to what is actually paying my bills. It's
Yeah.
so
No, it's
cool.
amazing.
So
No, it was so cool
there's a
to just see
dual.
your trajectory, like obviously I know you as a teammate and then as a friend, but you've been retired, which is crazy now for nearly 10 years. And watching how everything slowly built and leaned on one another to get where you are today, and obviously doing some amazing work with some amazing people. But it started as a leader and a mentor on the national team. It started actually well before that, but from my relationship with you, and then led into the rise. And I know you geeked out and you just love to help kids, and we host these camps, and you're so good with children and giving back to the sport and understanding people and being patient with people, and then into the opportunity that Cornelia gave you at Mindful Warrior and just running with it.
Yeah, and it's all uncomfortable. Like, Kaylee, I remember my first ride phone call. It's a video call, and I've got this like little 13-year-old on the other side of the screen, and I'm like, just retired a year ago from like national team. I've got armpits are sweating, and I'm like, hi. And she's like, hi. I was so nervous to be like excellent for this little one and to like hold her with professionalism and care and ethics and all of those things. And it's just like so cool to experience that growth in profession and like progression, excuse me, and like the discomfort of the building blocks, and then eventually you hit your hours, you put in the time, and you can start to experience flow and joy and have greater awareness than just like hi.
Yeah. No, and that's what's great too. Like, I mean, we were coming from athletes of being at the top, and we were basically masteries of our sport, and we knew how to do it, and we could do it with our, a blindfold. And then getting shoved into what we sometimes say the real world or the corporate world or the
Mhm.
working world, and being, a beginner again. And it's either like you could be scared of that, like it's always going to be uncomfortable, but you could A, be scared of that, or B, you could embrace it just like you used to embrace walking on the pool deck the first time, your first national team practice ever, and you embraced, trying to learn how to do a new shot or practice a new move or getting beat by these older girls. So it's the same type of embracing, just used in a different way. And it feels weird going through something so new as you're 30 years old, 32 years old, and you're like, oh gosh, I'm a beginner again. So it is really cool to
Absolutely.
have that mindset and be like, no, I'm not like scared I'm a beginner. Like, this is cool. I get so much opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah, and I
That's what I'm
think,
trying to tell myself.
yeah, no, and what's really cool? One of the things that Cornelia always said to me, because I think this was a little bit like when I just started entering into the corporate world. I was back in my junior year at USC when I was being inauthentic to myself. I was trying to be an executive coach, in
Yeah.
the corporate world, and I wasn't being Cammie, the executive coach that can step into the corporate world. And
Yeah.
so, I would get a little bit outside of myself. I would start speaking kind of a little bit different, not using words that were like really genuine or true, authentic to myself. And Cornelia was like, stop. You just need to be you. Like, that's where your greatest strength is when you're yourself. And that's when you deliver the best results. And so that was always helpful when she'd be like, get out of your own head and your own way and come back to you. And that's when you're going to really thrive. And it's rough when you do come as your total self and totally flop.
Yeah. It
But,
happens. It
um,
happens.
but that's been few and far apart, and I think that's been, like, the greatest, like, feedback that I've gotten
Yeah,
in
that's
this
amazing.
journey with, like, don't try to fit the mold, like, just be the most excellent version of yourself.
Yeah, the imposter. We don't need any imposter syndrome. Um,
Exactly.
all right, so you recently got married. I mean, I guess it's been, 6 or so months to Connor, who we obviously adore and love. And I want to know what's next for Cammie Clay, aka Cammie Craig.
Mhm. Yes, marriage. We adore Connor. Another transition in itself, moving in with a partner, getting married to a partner. It's like,
Yep.
hello,
Yep.
sharing space. No, but it's been really wonderful. So I think, I'm really excited about continuing to grow in the executive performance coaching world. I'm excited about what's possible for Mindful Warrior. I'm thrilled to be in a partnership and in a marriage. I don't take it any differently than what it's like being a teammate on the national team. We're partners, we're team. We take decisions together, we take on challenges together, and we're excited about trying for a family and just kicking butt in what we're doing. And we're here in the San Ynez Valley, so whoever wants to come hang out with us, come on over. We'll drink some wine and ride some horses.
That's amazing.
Um, yeah.
I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the pod. I know, thanks for being flexible. I know Lakey had to hop off and she'll be missing this conversation, but don't worry, you guys. I'm pretty sure Cammie is going to be a reoccurring guest because she is just a wealth of knowledge and just a fun time. And Lakey and I both love her dearly. But Cam, we finish up with a segment called Let's Wrap It Up. So this is your final question. If you could send a voice memo to your younger self or to anyone in the lineup chasing a dream, what's one piece of advice you would give to keep going?
Be brave. Just be brave. Like, keep showing up and be brave. Like, the times where you want to hide, under your covers and not show up to the speaking engagement, or, there's times where I'm like, well, if a meteor just hit the side of the house and broke the internet, I wouldn't have to do this. Like, I don't have to do this session or something. I'm like, just be brave, keep showing up. The worst thing that can happen is that you stay exactly where you're at. And so just keep being brave, keep showing up.
I love that. Thank you, Cammie. Hope you
Thank you
guys
so much.
enjoyed listening.
Keep kicking butt on this podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
baby.
So excited.
Let's keep it
Here
going.
we
Oh,
go.
by the way, Cammie has a podcast for Mindful Warriors. So please subscribe, like, comment, and listen to those episodes. They are great.
Mindful Warrior Radio. We talk about culture, flow, performance, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
We've got incredible guests. So tune in.
All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye.